Rúben Amorim is so honest in his press conferences to a point of fault, actually. And how can we sit here and say to a manager, don't be as honest as what you are being? Because to be fair, I've interviewed him. I think he's fantastic. And I think he basically says what we're all probably thinking. They're the worst club side in history. There's problems at the club. However, don't offer yourself up. Don't offer yourself up ever. Rúben, don't do that. I'm talking as a 50-year-old person here who's at times thought that's the right thing to do. He's very young. He's saying the admirable thing. You know, I once watched Kevin Keegan in an England dressing room talk with real emotion at the end of a game about how I've taken it as far as I can, and he handed his notice in. But he'd had 2.5 years in the job. He'd had a couple of years in the job. Rúben, you've been there 6 months.
What does that tell you?
Don't offer yourself up. Just tell us how you're going to essentially drive a bus through that dressing room and what you're going to do to fix it. That's all you need to do. Focus on that. They've said that you're going to stay at the start of next season. The fans want you to stay. I include myself in that as well. I'm a fan. I want him to stay at the club. I want them to support him. I want them to give him a chance. Stop offering yourself up. Stop doing the honourable thing. The reasons that you're losing and the reasons that ultimately this club is failing at this moment in time is a series of things that not all are down to you. You didn't sign any of those players apart from Dorgu. You didn't sign any of those players. None of them are yours. If in a year and a half or in a year's time we're talking about a couple of transfer windows and you've made some significant changes to that squad and they're starting to become your team and we're still playing the same way, obviously he knows then at that point he's going to be in trouble. But he didn't want to take this job, Rebecca. He didn't want to take this job partway through a season. And what happens when you're a young person sometimes? You say, no, I'd rather come at the end of the season. But you take a job in your life sometimes because you get swayed into it and you think you're going to miss the opportunity, or you're doing it for a different reason, or you just end up folding and basically sort of giving in and saying, right, I'll do it. No, we need you now, or else it won't be there at the end of the season. And you'll be looking at it and think, I wish I just said no. That's what he'll be thinking. But now is not a time for him to offer himself up. Now is a time the club are supporting him. They're definitely going to put him in place at the start of the season. Just tell us how you're going to get it right. And I want to point towards Luke Shaw's interview, because I thought that was equally as telling, where he talked about we've got to look ourselves in the mirror and decide whether we're good enough to play for Manchester United. One, Luke, it's not your job to determine that. A player at Manchester United should have no control as to whether they're there or not. The manager of the football club decides whether you're good enough to play in that football team. He will determine that. And when the players are starting to come out and question publicly whether they're good enough to play for the club, you know how bad it is internally there. You imagine what they're saying to each other inside. I have this thing about negativity spiral. In my businesses, in my life, if I hear the energy sapping negativity spiral starting to move, whereby you can feel people are starting to have an influence over the others, and Luke's an experienced player now, honestly, I think you've got to wipe it out. You've got to wipe out every single player in that dressing room who doesn't believe that they have got total and utter confidence to play for that football club. And there are some players on that pitch and some players on the bench who I think can still do a good job for Manchester United. I don't believe it's a case of get rid of them all. I think there's some talent in there. I believe that. And this idea that they don't care, I'll repeat what I've said many, many times again, never ever think that of football players, right? No, if you said to a Manchester United player this morning, just ask the logical question, that is someone's 22, 23-year-old son that played out there in a red shirt last night, or 25-year-old son. Right, and ask that question, do they want to be criticised this morning? Do they want to be walking into Old Trafford in front of 75,000 on Sunday? And that is a hell of a game they've got to go and play on Sunday, by the way. And do they want to be actually walking out there as losers with a runners-up medal behind them? Do they want to lose football matches? Do they want to be criticised on social media? The answer is no. They do care. And they do they've worked thousands of hours to get to this position of playing for the club, but the club is eating them alive. The club is eating them alive. It's too big for them, and someone's got to get a grip of that club, and I think it has to be the manager. Rúben, you've got to get a grip of that club, and he's so young as well, but he's got to have support from above him to really do. Mikel Arteta's done a great job at Arsenal. He really has. From day one, he imprinted his standards on the club. He put the coaching systems in place. There's been progression all the way through, and he's got 5 years now under his belt, 6 years under his belt. Rúben Amorim needs to look at next season how he gets into the top 6, how he basically wipes half that squad out, how he transforms it into a dynamic team that plays exciting football from the rigid stuff that we're currently watching him in served up, and needs to think about which players in that dressing room can do a job for him. Because if the players are starting to question their own belonging in that dressing room, you've got a huge problem.
Have you also got a problem that without any European football and finishing 16th or 17th in the table, the likes of Matheus Cunha, who apparently from Wolves has already started to get the wheels in motion on a deal, might look at that now after last night and not fancy it? And if you can't get a Matheus Cunha, you're going to struggle this summer with that £100 million that you said is possibly what he's going to have to play with to get any players to. Because that's why this Europa League final was so big, right? It was like the beginning of the new rebuild, or it was taking the biggest step backwards. How does he drive the bus through it, Gary? How does he rebuild this with £100 million? That's nothing.
A lot slower than he would have had if he had Champions League football, I suspect. I think what Champions League football would have given Manchester United was a little bit of a false start, if you know what I mean, in the sense that they would have, to be fair, got a leg up where they probably don't deserve it, but they do deserve it because they would have won the trophy. And so they would have had extra money to be able to put into the team, and that Rúben Amorim would have had a bit more money than the 100 million. But on the 100 million, I do question how much they have to raise to give him that 100 million. It's important to say that. However, next season, they're going to have to start at a lower expectation level. We're now talking about probably, I don't know how many years.
Yeah, how many years is it setting back last night?
I hate to think. I don't know how bad the finances are in the club. I know it's not good. When the owner sits on your show and tells you that they're running out of money, and you look at the debt and you look at the payments and you look at the accounts, it's not rosy. It's not rosy. It's not in a great position. And that means that the club are going to have to stabilise. They're currently going still through a process of obviously letting go another 200 members of staff, which is a horrible time for everybody at the club. So they're still cutting millions and millions of pounds out of the budgets for next season. And you hope this is the low point. That's the thing that I was thinking last night, sat there, I was thinking, maybe this is what the club needed. Maybe this was the low point, the absolute low, where maybe it just needs an absolute overhaul in respect of what's going to happen and how we're going to. Maybe it is a mid-table position next season that's realistic. Maybe it is sort of 9th, 10th, between that 8th and 10th. You know, are we going to be better next season than Liverpool, Tottenham, Chelsea, Manchester City, Arsenal, Villa, Newcastle, Brighton? Are we going to be better than those teams next season? I'm not sure. Now, not being in Europe will mean we can focus on the league and we can have better preparation for league matches. That's a positive. So that can sometimes give you a little bit of a little bit of a bonus, an unwanted bonus, obviously. But next season, if they got anywhere near top 6, I would say it would be an absolute great performance. I can't even think about winning the Premier League title at this point in time. We're nowhere near it. And I know it'll happen again one day. And I say that with great comfort. It might be 10 years, it might be 15 years. I don't care, we'll still be here. You know what I mean? It happened for 26 years previously, so there's no point. Manchester United fans aren't going anywhere. Yeah. We're massively loyal towards the club, massively loyal towards the players, massively loyal towards the manager, and they'll support them forevermore. So we're not going anywhere. However, it's going to be a long, hard road, this one.
Huge setback. It means the quality of players they're going to be bringing in are going to be massive gambles, hit and misses. Not going to be proven players because of the money. And Man United now, years ago, everybody wanted to play for Man United. I'm not sure that's the case now. I'm not sure. And worrying times, absolute worrying times. I thought the manager's decision-making yesterday was pretty poor. He was calling out for Garnacho to be on a lot quicker than what he was on, a lot quicker. And then Darlow come on and probably put into one of the best crosses of the whole night. So for me, I thought his decision-making was pretty poor on the night, if I'm being honest.
I mean, a lot has been spoken about Rúben Amorim, his formation or system. If obviously he continues at United, does he need to adapt more, and will he?
I think he needs to get... I think that was the thing with Ange is being adaptable. You know, when he played with his best team, they were a good team and they could play that way because they had Van der Ven and Romero at the back, so they could play that little bit of gung-ho football because of his pace. But again, with Amorim, when it ain't going well and he hasn't got the players to play, he wants to play, then he's got to be a bit more flexible and go, you know what, I've got to swallow the way I play, and when I get the players in I want, and then we'll work on that. But at the moment, I don't know. I don't think he wants to be there, if I'm being honest. I think when you turn around and say, you know, I'd leave tomorrow with no compensation talks or anything, that tells me he wants to be put out of his misery.
Obviously, we chatted about how bad it is there. He spoke about him claiming he'll walk away if he's not wanted. Is he wanted by the board, do you think? Do they have to stick with him? Because they've been through so many changes with managers and nothing seems to really be working.
I think they're put in a position now, if they don't want him, they've had a result because he doesn't want any compensation. He said, I'll walk away. So with that, if they don't want him, they've got a way out. They have got a way out. They ain't going to have to pay fortunes to get rid of him. Yeah, he see this coming. He didn't want to come to the start until the end of the season. He knew there was a lot of work to be done, you know, and there's a lot more now. You know, I just don't see how, wherever they come next season, I don't see them finishing in the top half of the table again, which is, to sit here and say that about Manchester United, it's just mind-blowing in my opinion. It's just mind-blowing to think that I would be absolutely shocked if they finished in the top half of the table next season.
We've said it's going to be tough to attract players without Champions League football, but what about holding on to players? Alejandro Garnacho didn't look very happy, did he? You wonder about his future. And Fernandes, more importantly, you said if the club thinks it's time to leave, then maybe I have to go. You know, that's what it's like. Football is like that sometimes if it comes to money. What do you think will happen to players like that?
I think there's a lot of work to be done there. I really do. I think they've got to keep their better players, you know, and go from there. But I don't see too many of them going anywhere. I don't see too many of them being bought. You know, I think Bruno Fernandes will probably be one of them who could get bought. Garnacho because he's young, you know, but I don't see too many. I think a lot of them are going to be there next season. There's a massive rebuild. And tomorrow morning, if Man United went for a player tomorrow morning and Tottenham went for the same player, I think the player goes to Tottenham. And I think that tells you everything what's happening at the moment and how big a football match that was yesterday. Because how many times would that have ever happened in the history of football?
Gary Neville has told Rúben Amorim to wipe out every single player who is lacking confidence after Luke Shaw's shocking post-match interview. Football pundit and United legend Neville has blasted Shaw for what he said after the Red Devils lost the Europa League final to Tottenham. United left-back Shaw, speaking after the painful defeat, made a huge admission and said, "It hurts a lot. This season has not been good enough. Us as players, we have to question if we're good enough for Man United because this season is not acceptable." Those remarks have infuriated Neville, who has called out the United defender on the overlap US and has told Amorim what to do with him. "Luke, it's not your job to determine that, the manager will determine that," Neville said. "If you can feel people having a negative influence over others, I think you have to wipe it out. You've got to wipe out every single player in that dressing room who doesn't believe that they have got total and utter confidence to play for that football club. The club is eating them alive, it's too big for them and someone's got to get a grip of that club and I think it has to be the manager. Rúben, you've got to get a grip of that club." United head coach Amorim has claimed he will walk away from the club with no payoff if the board and fans decide his time is already up. Amorim only arrived at Old Trafford in November, succeeding Erik ten Hag, and his comments after the Europa League final have also upset Neville. Rúben Amorim is so honest to a point of fault. "Don't offer yourself up, don't offer yourself up ever, don't do that," Neville added. "Stop doing the honourable thing. The reasons this club is failing is a series of things that are not all down to you. You didn't sign any of those players. Now is not the time for him to offer himself up, just tell us how you're going to get it right." United have already decided that they have no intention of sacking Amorim this summer after the team's failure to win the Europa League. Jamie Carragher, though, feels United's hierarchy must start contemplating whether or not they've made a mistake in appointing him.